Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senator Hassan, you're recognized for your questions.
Well, thank you, Chairman Peter. I want to thank you and Ranking Member Portman for this hearing. I want to thank all of the members of this very distinguished panel before the committee today to discuss ongoing efforts to secure the southern border. Chief Huffman, I'm going to start with a question to you. I recently visited the southern border for a third time and was there in early April. I am concerned after that visit that DHS is not more widely deploying the technologies that you are using to help secure the border in some locations. Greater deployment of integrated and autonomous cameras, radar, sensors, and additional technology to detect and deter the unauthorized aerial vehicles, or UAVs, that smugglers use would expand CBP's capabilities, address existing security gaps, and be a force multiplier. Congress has previously appropriated millions of dollars for these technologies, some of which CBP has not spent. Chief Huffman, what is holding up CBP's deployment of smart border technologies, particularly to strategic locations? Does the department need additional funding for any equipment or to surge resources in order to complete required reviews or plans before the technology can be deployed?
So thank you for that question, and thank you for the funding. That's extremely important. The technology provides the CBP as a whole and Border Patrol in particular the level of situational awareness that's critical to their success, and for your recognition of that is important to do that. So the main reason between the lag between the obligation and the funds of the deployment is generally real estate issues and environmental issues. It's not a lack of resource issue. It's the process where you have to acquire. If you're acquiring property, right, or you're acquiring those things, working through those other, it's regulatory issues that we work through. We're working through those as quickly as we can, and intend to be deploying all the technology that we've assessed as quickly as we can. So
would it be helpful to you? I mean, when you work through regulatory issues like that, it takes personnel to do that. Would it be helpful to you to surge personnel who do these regulatory processes?
We have, well, it could very well be on the particular case. It all depends on where it is and what you're trying to accomplish. To do that, our office that does that works real closely with the different programs to do that. Right. If they need personnel, they ask for additional personnel and try to meet the time that's necessary. But certainly, if we have an opportunity to speed it along with that, we'd certainly be happy to do that and look into how that could help.
Well, I would look forward to working on that with you, because we've got to get that done, because that strategic deployment of that technology is really critical.
Yes, ma'am. I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Let me ask you another question, Chief. In your testimony, you noted that CBP is shifting Border Patrol agents and CBP officers from other locations to assist at the southern border. When I visited the border last month, personnel there said that while these temporary duty assignments certainly help address increased migrant flows, they are taxing for the agents, officers, and their families, and they're not a long-term solution. I'm also concerned that the continual and likely increased shifting of personnel to the southern border will have a detrimental impact on travel, trade, and security along the northern border. How will CBP work to increase personnel at the southern border and continually and reliably meet these staffing needs?
Again, thank you for that for two reasons. One, anyone that takes care and concern about our front force, our workforce, it's important to us. So I appreciate your care and concern about that. It's a very challenging time. There's no question about that. And families people have detailed it to those areas, to the problem areas, and we try to minimize that as much as we can. Some of the things we're working on is, one, for the first time ever, we're establishing these contract processors to get agents back to the field, which may relieve the need to bring more down. We're increasing our use of the remote processing to allow people to stay using technology to stay on the northern border and process those ways as well as another process to do that. As we increase the hiring of our Border Patrol processing coordinators, also those things are all efforts that we're flying to affect the personnel issue, to deal with those issues, to increase more people on the front line organically or with contractors or with resources in there to do that, so we will have less likely to do that. Those takes a while to evolve as we get to those places to where they're function like we would like to. We rely upon our leadership on our northern border ports and northern border sectors to balance their resources as well as they can to address those, to minimize that, lean heavily on our Stone Garden partners in those areas as well to help us address all those things across the enterprise. And it's a big case of risk management is what it is, and that's what we're trying to do the best we can in those situations.
Well, I understand you're trying to do the best you can. I am also obviously concerned that as we stand up more resources at the southern border, we attend to the security and trade and travel at the northern border as well. And I, again, look forward to working with you to make sure that happens. Ms. Tierney, the first pillar of the DHS plan for southern border security focuses on surging additional resources to support border operations, including medical support resources. The plan indicates that DHS is expanding medical support and COVID-19 mitigation protocols and was preparing to be able to provide medical care for up to 18,000 people per day by the end of April. Ms. Tierney, did DHS make its deadline? And how can DHS ensure that frontline operations have the necessary medical resources and support if 18,000 people were apprehended tomorrow?
Senator, thank you for that question. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the medical support plan. So currently, CBP has over 800 contract medical personnel capable of providing 24/7 medical support. They're also authorizing travel and pay for the current personnel to, again, move around the southwest border based on requirements. There's also been work with the federal interagency to identify and secure federal medical teams from across a variety of departments. That is underway, and those requests for assistance are in process. There's also work to plus up the contract that exists currently, and that is also underway with the task orders against that, as well as, I mentioned, the interagency agreements. So there is medical personnel on site now. There will be federal interagency support between now and May 23rd, teed up and employed, and then the expansion of the existing contracts.
So does that mean that in your assessment with those resources in place, that if there were 18,000 people at the border tomorrow, you would be prepared to meet the medical needs? That's what the plan said, you would be ready by the end of April.
Well, Senator, I think what I would say is, being a prudent and practical person, that we will have resources in place and we will have an ability to expand based on requirements. I think, again, as the Secretary and others have mentioned, if CBP were to encounter up to 18,000 people per day, that will place enormous strain on the system. And so I think it is unclear, whether the medical services that are currently in place or they're in the process of being in place could flex to that level. That is that is almost 3 times the number of people that are currently encountered at the border on average.
And I think one of my concerns, and Mr. Chair, I wanted to do one follow-up on this. I know I'm running over time, but one of my concerns about this planning, the discussion we've been having about getting ready for the eventual lifting of Title 42 is that people keep telling me, but we have a plan, and it isn't clear that having the plan and actually having the resources on the ground to meet the goals of that plan are the same thing. And so I appreciate this dialogue, but what I'm going to continue to follow up with all of you on is what does that mean in operational terms for the frontline personnel who will, in all likelihood, be seeing a significant increase in attempted migrant crossings when Title 42 is lifted. Now, I want to follow up with one other issue, Ms. Tierney. The DHS plan also indicated that the department is planning to expand its COVID-19 vaccine program to 24 CBP sites by May 23rd so that all age-eligible non-citizens who had not already been vaccinated would receive their first dose before they traveled beyond a processing center. Ms. Tierney, is the department's 100% vaccination plan based upon current apprehension levels, or does it account for 18,000 possible daily apprehensions? Would the 24 sites noted in the plan be sufficient to accommodate all unvaccinated individuals, or would additional sites and resources be necessary?
Senator, thank you for that question. I believe you kind of had a 2-part question. I would like to address the first part because I think it is a very important point that is worth discussing in this forum. I think we would all agree that safety, officer safety, and the safety of the non-citizens crossing the border is a priority. And so the plan lays out the resources that we will need to have in place by May 23rd and have the ability to flex up to based on increases in encounters at the 12,000 and 18,000 encounter a day planning assumptions. So the plan lays out what we need to do. And what the Southwest Border Coordination Center, the people working in it, the interagency, is doing is actioning those planning items to actually resource the things that we need, whether it's additional federal law enforcement personnel, contract civilian processors to free up Border Patrol agents, contract security guards, buses, airlift, medical personnel, additional facilities.
Right.
That is what we have been doing and what we will continue to do in order to be ready for May 23rd and be positioned for additional encounters.
I am going to, the chairman is indicating that it is time to move on because we are well over time. That isn't the question I asked. I understand what you're saying to me now. I will look forward to following up with you. I would like, in writing, a response on the vaccination capacity. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Senator Hassan. Senator Padilla.